Hello, everyone. This is Francine. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I am your host. Today, we're here with Dr. Antoinette M. Rogers, and she is the program director for the Delta Research Educational Foundation. And we're here to talk to her and get some insight into dementia, Alzheimer's, and other things. So please welcome her to the show. Welcome, Antoinette. How are you?
Thank you, Francine. It's a pleasure to be here. This is exciting. This is my first time doing a show, so thank you for the honor.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking some time out for us on Autumn is Here. You know, my show talks about different things like caregiving and Alzheimer's and dementia and trying to get awareness out to people and information. So tell me how you started working with the association or the foundation and how you got involved with Alzheimer's.
Sure. So, before this became a professional endeavor or work-related endeavor, it was very personal, as I had several family members who were diagnosed with some form of dementia. And as an only child, I was thrust into the role of caregiver. So I became a caregiver along with my cousins for an uncle who did not have any children. And then I also took care of my father, who developed Parkinson's-related dementia. And then I also helped with his sister, who again had no children, who also had, dementia. So it has been a labor of love. Even before that, I'm thinking back to another family friend who was probably the very first time that I was asked to provide care for someone. And it was just for a short period of time, but it really awakened me to the realities of having a loved one with dementia and what that means and how to assist in special needs. And so I've always been a nurturer and a carer, I think, by nature. I'm an educator by nature, so I'm always human-centered. And carrying that over, of course, for loved ones, I feel like, it's a responsibility. So it was a great labor of love to be able to do that. And because I was interested in doing that in my professional life, I had an opportunity to focus with the Delta Research and Educational Foundation on health disparities and health equity issues. And of course, Alzheimer's and dementia are very prevalent in communities of color. And the spark had been ignited earlier as a caregiver when I attended an annual conference sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association here in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia. And as I moved into caregiving more, the more I sought to learn. And it was a wonderful opportunity to bring my personal interest in caregiving to my work. And so that was a good mesh. And as a result of the work, just knowing and indicating that I was interested in it, I was able to talk with another researcher who in turn connected me with the Alzheimer's Association nationally. And in striking up a conversation with the Alzheimer's Association on a national level, we began to just talk about organizational participation and how we could bring more attention to communities of color and emphasize the fact that Alzheimer's and dementia are very prevalent in our communities. And a lot of times, people don't know exactly what to do or how to provide care, how to be responsive. And so that's what led me into that. And almost 2 years later, I am now still working and a supporter of the Alzheimer's Association. And actually, once you become a caregiver and people know, they kind of turn to you and ask for advice. So even on a personal level, here in my city and just with family and friends, I have become kind of a resource person for them. And that's an honor. And I, as an educator, certainly want to share anything that I've learned. So I'm hoping that I am making a difference. And thank you for this opportunity. I think what you are doing is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about some of the things that you may have came across because you said that there were disparities in awareness in communities of color. What are the things that you found out that was maybe the reason for that?
hmm So a couple of things, and this was actually really spawned by a personal experience. A couple of years ago, I had a scare with an increased glucose level, and I was diagnosed as type 2 diabetic, right? And it was something that kind of came out of nowhere. I might attribute it to being a woman of a certain age and beginning menopause. I learned that a lot of times that prompts the onset of type 2 diabetes. But in learning about diabetes, I also learned that there is a correlation between type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, in many cases, is actually called type 3 diabetes. And that is when there's a lot of sugar in the system that impacts brain function. So, a lot of times we hear about sugar being unhealthy and deadly with exposure over time, but there is that correlation. And so that was one thing that really piqued my interest. And as you know, people of color are disproportionately impacted by diabetes and the things that tend to coexist, the other comorbidities like high blood pressure, all of those things. And so all of those things impact the vascular system, the neurological system, thereby impacting the onset of dementia or, Alzheimer's. So that is one thing. Another thing that I found fascinating when I attended a caregiver's workshop, specifically for those caring for elders and those with dementia, is that there is a correlation and a body of research that looks at racial issues and discrimination and environmental issues that impact how people internalize stress and trauma and how that then can, manifest as dementia or Alzheimer's. And to me, that was fascinating, particularly with older people who have lived through discrimination and civil rights turmoil. And it was particularly poignant for me because I took care of my dad who passed away at 92. But my father had lived through segregated times. Born in 1927, he had lived through segregated times. He had been in the military, in the segregated military. And I do believe that there are some real truths and some correlations to environmental factors and systemic racism and other things that impact our brain structure and how we carry trauma in our bodies, which ultimately can impact us in the long run.
Wow. So let me find out like all the things that you may suggest or that has helped the community, the things that you put into place with the Alzheimer's Association.
So I think the very first thing that is necessary is to help people become more aware of the prevalence of Alzheimer's and dementia, to define what Alzheimer's and dementia is, and to also provide the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations that provide support. Because many times it is a lonely thing to be a caregiver and people feel like they don't have a community of support. And that is critical when you are doing any kind of caregiving, Alzheimer's or otherwise, just having that support. And so I think education is the first thing to make people aware. And along with that, education is actually training on how to talk to people, looking at diet and exercise and how those things, any other thing that we would do to promote and preserve health, we need to address as we deal with those who have Alzheimer's. And it's also important to note that there is early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. So not everyone who is impacted is a senior citizen. There are people who, are in their late 30s or 40s, and that's certainly not considered senior citizen status. But early onset dementia and Alzheimer's is an issue. So I think that is really important as well. The other thing I would encourage people to do is to take a close look at their health and their risk. Again, we talk about diet and exercise. We talk about the prevalence of diabetes and the link between diabetes and other comorbidities that may influence the onset of Alzheimer's and the development of dementia. So, that's one thing that we can all do, regardless of our age, is take stock of our health and figure out how we can be more healthy, even if it is drinking more water, going to bed early. I am a CPAP wearer, and I was amazed to find out the impact of a good night's sleep. And conversely, the correlation between those who don't have good sleep. Sorry, my dog is showing off.
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
Ollie. And he knows too. He's been here with me through some of these learning opportunities and experiences that I've had. And that's actually a good point. Maybe the dog has a reason for barking, but pets are great in terms of therapeutic value. And so, anytime we have someone that we can, who has cognitive deficiency or cognitive loss, music, pets, art are things that can help stimulate memories and bring about positive experiences for people.
Okay. So you were a caregiver to a few people. You helped out and you were a caregiver. What is your experience? What is something that you would say that you didn't expect, and now you know?
I don't think I really anticipated the toll. I won't say the toll, but just the impact that it had on me. Because as a caregiver, you are giving of yourself. You are helping with everything from personal care, toileting, feeding, all of that. And I did this while working. So, and I was fortunate in that in the early stages, I had some caregivers and agencies that would come and help me. But toward the end, the last 6 months of my dad's life, I was able to be, full-time caregiver and help. But, again, making time to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty vessel. So taking time as the caregiver to be well rested and to honor your own spirit, your own body, your own mind by carving out some time to renew and reinvigorate and regenerate. That's important because you can't help anybody else if you're beat up, and you're tired. So I think I underestimated just what it would take working at the time as in a very rigorous full-time job that required, sometimes weekends and nights, and then coming home and being able to do that. But it was the greatest honor of my life. So I don't regret it. I was a little tired, but my thought was, well, I can always sleep, I'm going to take care of my dad. And ultimately, when I did decide to step away from my job, my philosophy was, I can find another job, but I only have one daddy. So I'm going to do what I have to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, often we become a caregiver and we give up ourselves and we love them. So we're just going to do what we have to do and we'll figure it out. But it's good to have some support.
Absolutely. And it's important to have outlets. And so I would encourage those who are caregivers to spend as much quality time with your loved one in the caregiving. Find activities that you both enjoy. As much as you need to carve out time for yourself, it's important to cherish those times together and to find things that you can do together, even if it is, taking a walk or taking a ride, going to a concert, going to get an ice cream cone, those things that provide that precious time and provide stimulation, conversation, and just awareness of being in a different environment. Because we all can benefit from a change of scenery from time to time. So that's important.
Right. Well, since you are a caregiver and you also do research in dementia, Alzheimer's, and you help out in that way, and you're an educator, what do you wish that could happen? What do you want to see more of?
So one of the things that uh, is really coming to the forefront now is the fact that although people of color are disproportionately impacted by health issues such as diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, cardiovascular disease, we are not often included in the research, in the frontline research going on medically. So it's really important for us to be included in clinical trials and research so that we can help doctors and researchers understand if there are differences, and it's not that it's a racial difference, but there are different environmental factors and different genetic factors that may influence how we respond to medication or treatment. And so it's important for us to be included in those clinical trials. That's one thing that I wish were different. The other thing that I wish were different, and it really varies because you really don't know individuals' circumstances in terms of support and finances, but I really wish that folks could take the time to really spend with their loved ones and invest in themselves in learning how to be caregivers. That's important. Caregiving is a lot more than just sticking somebody in front of a TV and giving them a warm meal. It's about, the emotional support. It's about the physical support. It's about the spiritual well-being. So it's, holistic. And that's one thing that I wish people would be able to do. And some of it is restricted because of income, because of time. I understand people have to work. Some people don't have support. But in that light, I think it's important also to make sure that we spread the word about resources that are available. Doing podcasts and shows like yours is one of the first steps in making people aware that there are others who have gone through the same experiences and that there are resources available. And so thank you again for this. This is the start.
Yeah, it's sometimes when you're a caregiver, it can be lonely.
Absolutely.
Around you doing it, or you don't know the questions. A lot of times we don't know the questions to ask. We're just faced with a situation. We don't know the questions to ask, and we don't know that there's support out there.
Mhm.
And then, so we definitely want to get more awareness that there are places that'll give you support, and there are people that are working on this. That's what I like. The people that are
Right.
working on it, there's doctors that are working on it, and researchers working on it. And yes, we need to get more involved with clinical trials. So,
Mhm.
listen.
One really helpful resource is available in every state. And I found out in researching that every state has an agency on aging. It may be called something different in your respective state, but every state has one, and larger states have them broken up into regions of the state. And for me, I was able to work with Senior Connections, which was formerly called the Capital Area Agency on Aging here in Virginia. But Senior Connections was crucial to getting me assistance in the early stages where I found a day program where my dad could go and not be isolated. They also were very instrumental in helping me find home aides. I was able to apply for, well, really, I didn't apply for it. I was granted a respite care scholarship from Senior Connections. And when the representative called from the agency to say, Dr. Rogers, you've been selected to receive help in the form of a respite scholarship. And I said, what is that? And how did I get on the list? And she explained that because I had called the agency and I had established a case with them and I followed up and, I indicated that I needed some assistance with my dad. When I called back the second time, as I noticed that he was starting to change a little bit and, he was starting to decline a bit and I needed some more assistance, they took note of that. And after my phone call, within a few days, I got the call that we qualified for a respite care scholarship, which was absolutely free. And it was a true blessing. And when I said, well, what does that mean? The lady from the agency said, well, it means that we will assign a home health care agency to work with you. And over, I can't remember if it was 10 weeks or 15 weeks, whatever it was, over that time period, I would get a home health aide who would come in and help me with my dad for 10 hours a week.
Okay.
And that was, it could be weeknights or weekdays, but it was mostly on the weekends when I needed the extra help. And at that time, my job required me to travel. And so, that was a blessing to have that person come in, and we were able to establish relationships with some of the aides. And so we had, certain aides that would work with us, and it was wonderful. And I remember the woman saying, well, it's your 10 hours and we have vetted these people and, they will be in your house and they can help with light work and feeding and just keeping company and any personal needs. But, she said, you can be in the house too. She said, it's your 10 hours. I'll never forget this. She said, it's your 10 hours. If you want to go upstairs and sleep for 10 hours, then you can. And so I just appreciated the availability of that service. Of course, I did not sleep for 10 hours, but I did appreciate having the extra hands, just having that support. And the fact that two of his regular caregivers were male caregivers. And for a Black man, that was a bonding opportunity, right? And, it helps to have, and care in any color. So I'm not in any way suggesting that if people are of different ethnicities or different backgrounds that they can't be wonderful caregivers. But it does help, I think, to have some cultural identity and some relationship. That building relationship is really important for any kind of caregiver, whether it's a family member, a person from an outside agency. We have to build our loved ones' trust, and we have to ensure them that we have their best interests at heart. We're not going to take anything from them. We're not going to harm them. And that, again, requires trust and the ability to establish good relationships. Even if it's a parent and child, that relationship changes over time.
Right. Okay. So thank you for all this information. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being personal about it and giving us some insight into your world as far as being a caregiver. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the audience of things that you want them to know?
I would say, definitely visit the Alzheimer's Association website, as well as AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, aarp.org/caregivers. Both organizations have wonderful resources. And then again, for each state, check with your respective state on senior care agencies and any special agencies related to, cognitive needs such as Alzheimer's or dementia.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you again, Dr. Rogers. I appreciate you taking the time out and to talk to us about the subject and all the work that you've done. I really appreciate that. And, it's good to know that there are people that are researching, working on this and helping other people. So thank you for being someone like that in your community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
All right. Well, take care.